to the next episode of the Everyday Sewist. Thanks for being here. My name is Stephanie, and today I have a bunch of projects to show you that I have been working on, and I hope that you enjoy it and get some inspiration from it. The first project that I would like to show you is this one behind me. It is an hourglass block, just a single block repeated one after the other. And this is a queen size quilt that I finished in 2022. It is made up of, let me get my statistics out here. I have 240 blocks that finished at 6 inches, and it is set 15 across and 16 down. It finished at 86 by 91, at least that's what it measures right now. It's been washed a couple times, so I think it actually has shrunk a little bit. If you like making repeatable blocks like this, I think this one is a really good choice. For a 6-inch block, you start with 2 8-inch squares. I did use the same background fabric throughout, so it did use a lot of background fabric, but in this quilt I used almost exclusively fig tree fabrics. I think I have said before I'm a big fan of fig tree fabrics, especially for the fall lines. I really like those warm toasty colors for the early fall, late summer, early fall. And so I pulled from my stash of fig tree, cut up lots and lots of 8-inch squares, and paired it with the fig tree cream background color and just stitched away. So it did take a while to do this one, but I like it a lot, and I would recommend, and I'd even seen a tutorial for this with Cluck Cluck Sew. That's where I got the information for it, was from Cluck Cluck Sew. She has a chart with all different sizes on it, and she even talked about doing it as a block a day. So I'd be really tempted to do something like that again, because if you can do a block a day, you do build up a quilt, not in a hurry, but you do build it a little bit at a time. So that is my old finish for today. And in relation to that, I want to share with you another hourglass project that I have been doing in fits and starts. I haven't worked on it lately, but first I'm going to show you this bin of 4-inch squares. Now, Carol, this is for you. Carol, you asked me what my oldest UFO is. This is it. When I first moved to Indianapolis in 1999, I joined a bee that was a group of really special gals, and we called ourselves Out on a Whim, and we exchanged different colors of fabric squares, 4 inches from our stash, for several months. And some of the gals did actually make a project with theirs. I did not. I haven't finished mine yet. I did a little bit of work on it, and at the moment what I'm testing out is I am making tiny hourglass blocks. So I'm not sure if this is the only project I would make with these squares. I'm not. I think that's why I've put it away for a little while. But I do have a bunch of these. They will finish at 2.5 inches. So with that chart that's on Cluck Cluck Sew, you can figure out what size square you're starting with, whether it's a 4-inch square like this or an 8-inch square as in the quilt behind me, and you can figure out which works best for your stash. Now, let me put this up against here. So for comparison, you've got teeny tinies and you can go as big as you want. Matter of fact, that could be a really interesting way to use these blocks, is to make combine 4 of the tiny ones, and once you sew those together, let's turn that around. Once you sew 4 of those together, you could pair it with a larger size or a plain square or anything else of your choosing. So while I'm still mulling around what I want to do with the squares and with these blocks, they have been sitting for a while. So I haven't done much with them lately. So let me share with you then some of my newer finishes. So I did finish the binding and the quilting and the binding on this cute Halloween table runner. I'm really happy with that. Here's the backing. I use this cute stripe for a binding. Stripes are always pretty nice for that. So I did finally get this one done, and it will be out on the table pretty soon because it's getting close to that time of year. I also finished the binding on the Christmas version of the same pattern. This is the pattern I'm doing. It's called Season's Greetings. And I should mention again, just in case you don't remember, is that I did add borders to mine. So here is my Christmas version. And I love the backing for this one. And let's see if you can see, I put a kind of a snowflakey design on there. So it is kind of reversible. I could put it out with either side. My next finish I'm really quite happy with. It is another Halloween project. I started this one just about a month or so ago, and this one is called Staccato, and it's another Villa Rosa pattern. It uses 9 fat quarters and 2 yards of background. I made mine 1 column narrower than what they recommended, but if you'll hold on just a minute, I will put this up here behind me so you can get a better view of it. This is Staccato, made with a pretty wide range of Halloween fat quarters or fabrics that have been in my stash. I guess I could say not necessarily fat quarters, even though the pattern called for it. So I used several different prints, and I ended up trying to put, at least if I used a print here, I also tried to put it into the bottom row as well. So it ends, the pattern ends like that. So you make these rows, these columns, and you flip every other one around in order to get them to be staggered like that. Because my fabrics are directional though, I laid out the whole entire top before I sewed it together so that I could make sure that all of my little pictures here were facing the right way. So if you are using directional fabrics for this, I would recommend that you take that step to lay it all out ahead of time and get those prints in the right direction. But it was really fun to sew, and it didn't take too much time. And so I'm really happy to see this one done and ready to use this year. I forgot to tell you about the quilting pattern on this and the backing. So let me show you. This one has a pattern called Star Dance on it. It's pretty visible on the back too. And I did use Minky on the back, and I wanted to tell you something though. This piece of Minky is actually, I pieced the backing of Minky fabric together. And I don't think you can tell that I pieced the backing on this. It turned out really well. I don't know if you have had any experience in sewing with Minky, but it's not too hard to work with if you keep a couple of the following steps in mind. One is that you want to use a little bit longer stitch length. I also used a 1/2 inch seam instead of a 1/4 inch seam. You do pin a lot. I put pins in about every 2 inches, and go slowly enough. So I was really happy to be able to use these leftover pieces of Minky for the backing of this quilt. And if I had a lot of strips of multicolored, different colors of pieces of Minky, I think it could be really fun to sew those together for the top of a quilt or the back of the quilt. So I hope you won't be afraid to try sewing with Minky, even though most people just use it as a backing fabric for the long arm. So let me get the next one ready for you. This is the next project that I finished just recently, and this is a Halloween version of a disappearing 9-patch. Disappearing 9-patch is so much fun to make. This one uses 5-inch squares, and the fun part about it is, if you haven't ever made a disappearing 9-patch before, is that you start with rather oversized 9-patch blocks. In my case, I used 5-inch squares of all my colors, my greens and my oranges, and 5-inch squares of the black fabrics, and 5-inch squares of all of those low volume, light colored background squares. And for this quilt, it took 144 squares. And what I'll try to do is I'll put it in the description box, exactly the breakdown of how many of each of those squares that I cut, at least for my size quilt. And what I did is I made 16 9-patches. Now, 16 9-patches can go pretty fast if you are a somewhat experienced piecer. And so in no time at all, you have your 9-patches. And then you cut them both on the horizontal and the vertical in order to get quarter blocks. And so this quilt needed 64 quarters, and the top ended up being 56 by 70. I added this really cute little cookie Halloween print on as a border, and I finished it up with this very nice backing fabric. It looks like the little chocolate jimmies that you put onto your cupcakes and cookies. So, really fun to make. The quilting pattern on it has swirls and stars, and it'll be a really fun quilt to have out at Halloween this year. And it did not use that much of my stash. I could probably have enough 5-inch squares to cut another one. But what I did do is, since I enjoyed making that one so much, I ended up getting into a box of my fall fabrics that I had stashed away. And in the last day or two, I've cut another 200 5-inch squares out of those stash pieces. And these I'm going to use first for my Dancing Charms block. And then I'm pretty sure I will have enough left over to make a disappearing 9 patch with fall fabrics, right? Just general fall colored fabrics, not necessarily Halloween. So I am really looking forward to working on that. I just need to pick out a background color for this. And then maybe I'll have something like that to show you next time. We'll see. Now I want to show you a couple of the projects that I have been quilting for other people, because we all like to be inspired. And one of the joys of being a long arm quilter is getting to see other people's projects as they bring them to me. And so I wanted to share a couple of those with you today. The first one of the customer quilts that I wanted to share with you is this one that a guild member did for Quilts of Valor. And if you like sewing the quilts for Quilts of Valor, I thought you might really enjoy seeing this one. It's just a great, very simple setting with these wonderful star blocks arranged and a background fabric cut the same size as the star blocks and the double border. And how striking is that? So if you are enjoying sewing for Quilts of Valor, you might like to try this version out. This is a 12-inch finished block. So these are 12-inch finished squares. And I think that makes a really nice sized quilt. Next, I have for you this Christmas quilt that a friend of mine made, and I quilted it for her. And she did not use a pattern for this. It is huge. It's a king-size quilt. And she said that it was made with all scraps from her stash of Christmas fabrics. There are 8 rows down, and if I step out of the way a little bit, you can get a better picture of the whole project. And I think it's really striking, and I think it'd be a great way to tackle some of your Christmas scraps. You do need a single background fabric. I'm not really sure how much background fabric she used, but I think if you made one row, you could probably figure out about how much you would need. I'm guessing because this is king size, it probably needs about 5 or 6 yards of background fabric for those white spaces. And I quilted it in a really beautiful pattern with holly and leaves, and I think she's going to really like it when we meet up for her to pick it up. So I hope you enjoyed that little show and tell of other people's quilts. Next, I have one of my works in progress that is almost a finish. It should be finished by next time. This is one of 2 quilts that I made with a stack of leftover blocks that I showed you last time. I had 47 blocks, and I made a couple more and decided, with the help of all of you on Instagram, I decided that 2 smaller quilts would be better than 1 larger quilt. So this one is a free pattern from the Fat Quarter Shop called Jelly Roll Ripples. They have a lot of really great patterns on their website, and I enjoy looking through those. So this one, it's a 10-inch block. So with the borders that I added to it, it's about 50 by 70. And so that one is quilted, and I have the binding on it. And the second one, I just got it quilted the other day, and I still need to attach the binding. So there is version number 2. And on the back of this one, I wanted to use a really sunny print on that, and I think that works really well with it. And on the back of the other one, I did a pieced backing. So I'm going to put that one up here for you so that you can get a little better look at my pieced backing, and I can tell you how I did it. So I wanted to show you the backing of the second jelly roll quilt that I did, and I really like how this came out. I came this close to actually buying some more fabric for it, and I stopped myself and pulled out some yellows that I thought would be really pretty for the back of this. They are all from different K-Facet collections, and so I kind of laid them all out, and then I started cutting. And I started with this print on the bottom here. Started with this one and cut the largest piece that I could from that fabric. And then I added a strip over to the side. And that gave me about a width of fabric this way. And so then I could add this next chunk on to here. And then I added my side piece. And to give it a little bit more length, I did the piece across the top. So if you're interested in doing something like that, I can tell you, yes, it's more time consuming. Give yourself at least the length of a football game on a Sunday and you can get it done. And that's about what worked for me. The other thing I want to tell you about, though, is this book that I have on my bookshelf. And I really like it. It often gives me the inspiration to make a plan. So even though this backing didn't really come from this book, it was inspired by this book. This is by Kelly Young. I've used it many, many times for ideas and how I might go about piecing my backing. She does give specific information on how to do quilts using large pieces of fabric all the way to smaller pieces of fabric. So there are several different categories and including basics on it, and so you can get a really good idea from her as to how to start piecing quilt backs using lots of pieces. And that's pretty much the way I want to operate, to try to use up some of my stash and enjoy those pieces of fabric instead of having them sit on a shelf. So yay, I have another backing from there, and I also pieced the batting. So I used up lots of bits to try to get that one to the finish line. And so by next time I should have the bindings on it, and I'll show those to you one more time, and then they're off to either new homes or to my couch. So those are the things that I've been working on the most. I'm still working on my temperature quilt. I showed you I had to cut some more squares for my nether one. And that's about all that I have had a chance to work on. I didn't get a chance to dig into any of those other projects that I had shown you last time. And I still have this trick or treat panel. I still have this cute panel to work with, and I think I'm hopefully going to work on that sometime over the next couple of weeks. And then the last thing that I wanted to share with you, and these are quilts from friends. I had a dear friend who just passed away, and I am lucky enough to have 3 of her quilts in my possession. So I'm going to show those to you. I'm very, very lucky to have known Sonia for several years. She was one of the members of this group that we shared fabric squares with. So, and she made this one for me back in 2020 when I had my studio, and it represents myself and my friend Jane and her. And then I also received from her this beautiful framed work, which she called Friends. And then the last one that I have from hers is one that she had made many, many years ago. And I had told her that a long, long time ago, I said, oh, I really like that quilt. And it ended up that she gave it to me several years later. And so it's hanging on my wall. But it shows you where her style went from the early days of her patchwork all the way to the improv style that she embraced and more improv. Sonia was such a bright light, and I'm going to miss her. So I only have a couple other little things that I'd like to tell you about. One is that if you are doing a lot of cutting like I was, and you're trying to keep track of how many pieces that you have cut, I find these numbered pins to be so helpful. So anytime that you can mark a number like in between cutting, and I'll have a stack of 5 squares, and then I go and I have to cut more. Well, instead of having to come back and recount those 5 squares, I put a pin in it. These go all the way up to 20, but you can use any system that you want, even if it's a pin and a slip of paper. But do yourself a favor when you're cutting lots and lots of anything that you're trying to keep track of, to keep those numbered as you go, and it will save you from having to count and recount all the time. The other little thing that I was thinking about doing coming up, I was thinking about starting this Holly Jolly quilt along that actually took place last year. And in order to make that quilt, you need this book, which I happen to have. And so I am thinking that if I were to start anything new at all, I might try making this quilt because I think it's really cute. Other than that, I do not have any plans to start anything new. I need to get some of these finished, and before you know it, we're going to be deep into holiday preparations, and I think that my sewing time will be limited. I'll be traveling a little bit as well. It may affect my ability to record on time next time. So if there's a little bit of a delay, I hope you'll forgive me as I'm out and doing a little bit of traveling. So I also just want to say a thank you to all of you who have subscribed recently. It is so fun reading comments and getting to hear about where you're from and what you're working on. And I also wanted to tell you that I do have a Facebook group. I brought it back to life so that you would have a place to share your projects. And I'll put a link in the description box for that, just so that I don't get it wrong. And so if you are on Facebook and would like to have conversations with other quilters and subscribers, then that's a great place to meet up. You do have to ask to join, and I just want to make sure that there are no spammers in there. So it may take me a little bit of time to respond, but I'll try to stay on top of that as best I can. So I want to just say a thank you to the following, some of the following new subscribers: Chris, Debbie, Suzanne, Donita, Mom and Dad H, Tammy, Jane, Beverly, Mindia, Laria, Patty, Nancy, Mary, Penny, Donna, and Phyllis. Thank you all so much for joining me, and thanks for being here. Bye-bye from the Everyday Sewist.